Okay, so we have the 13th of January, the second day of the Treatment Practicum 2 course coming into motion. What we're going to be doing today is going into the material of the fourth step. There's Tina coming. Specifically, the resentment. We will probably just use the day for resentments. That's the big one, for sure. And just a few. There's Mona. Okay, and just a few announcements. Will be Cynthia has been working on a if you go into the chat, you will see that you can do the check-ins through the link. And she's actually putting also in the characteristics of self and God onto that. So you'd be able to just go on the link into there and sign up, and it will be sent off. You can also, if you want to, I also sent it to you via email, so you can reply on email if that's more appropriate for you. So you can do either, but as Cindy always says, it's probably more secure online on our site than anywhere else. So take a look at it, and we're going to be wanting to start that process sooner than later. So Mona is here listening. Okay, thank you. Tina, welcome. And here's the daily check-in automatically to Esther. Okay. Also, that we're setting up, Cynthia, our dear friend Cynthia, of course, setting up as a kind of a how do you say that?
Template
For PowerPoints for your, thank you, Cynthia, for your presentations. So to make it easier on you, then you can just use that. It will have Infact School something on, and you can just make it yours. And we'll probably get that to you in the coming week as well, so that you can take a look at that. And I thank Cynthia for setting that up. That's beautiful work. We're going to have Gabi, our graphic marketing coworker, set it up with the Infact School design that she has designed so beautifully for us. Okay, so I also wanted to say that I'm still working on the PowerPoints and the material, because the reason be to, that when I set up this material, it came out of my work here in Iceland for clients, and I set it up, and then I started doing this course that you're going to be doing now for Shift, and they asked me to do a treatment course with the steps, and I did. I have done a few there. And so what I did was that I set it up, the material, like what you have seen and saw yesterday in PowerPoints. It is actually going to be a book. We're working on it. It takes a little while to get all the material in there and together, and I'm adding on to it. And I will be adding on to this material probably till the end of our being together. But we'll put it on the online Treatment Practicum 2, which will be published after the weekend. And I'm hoping to kind of finalize the PowerPoints and set them up. And then Cindy and I will meet on Monday and probably get it ready for you so that you can go in and look at it. What else is going to be there some extra material, of course. We're gonna be setting up the 4-step lists, which are basically 4 lists, and I will show you today what they are or how they look like, and which are the worksheets that you're going to be working by, and as we go forward. Another thing that we need to decide on as a group is, yes, we're going to be getting those lists done, not in 3 months, in weeks. You need to start working on this immediately, basically, because we can't, we will want to have done the so-called 5th step in maybe 3, 4 weeks, let's say 4 weeks. And if we need to extend that, we will, but in order to keep pace, do the work, it needs to have happened. And the 5th step is when we take the lists that we're doing to a support person. It could be somebody else in the group, and I will be signing up sessions with you. You have 2 sessions with me specifically to go through the work on your lists. So and specifically the resentment list, but any of them. You can use it for any of the work that we're going into. You will have an hour-long session to do what is maybe difficult for you to go through and get through. So I want to say this, that I get a lot of clients that have been in 12-step programs, but they could never do the 4th through 9. They would always stop as they came to that. My research shows that this is because people have trauma and abuse in their background. And I remember specifically a lady that she had tried multiple times to be abstinent. She's a food addict, sincerely doing the 12-step work. Every time she was gonna sit down with a sponsor, she'd lose her abstinence, just lose her abstinence. And so she came to treatment, and she came into sessions with me. And what we realized was, or what she finally got to tell me, was that she was sexually abused as a child up into adolescent, teenage years. I think it was maybe from like 3 to 6 to 12 or 13 or something, and by 3 men. And the only time she got off was when her parents got a dog, and the dog was with her for about a year, and then the parents decided they didn't want a dog, and the whole thing happened again. You know, those are the backgrounds of people that have this disease. And so this is not for anybody. This needs to be attended to by a professional, I would say. And I had some sessions with her up to the degree of my capabilities as a counselor. And then I suggested she do more work. And I haven't heard from her for a while, but I know for a fact that she is abstinent today. So hopefully she did continue to get the help she needed to resolve. And this kind of work, it needs more than just resolve. It needs to get the person, and the IFS, EMDR kind of somatic, the kind of work that I do with, which is based on all of these, actually, is to move a person through the trauma into safety. So those inner parts feel safe again and can start healing. And I see this over and over and over again with my clients and with people that go into this kind of therapy. But any kind of therapy is needed. Sometimes the best therapy for people when they're starting off working on these is just be able to talk about it. That's the first step. And as the person grows in her or his ability and to go into, you know, this kind of traumas, we'd need somebody like Anne, psychotherapy work, and or any of the other professionals that can really do, psychologists and psychiatrists that can really go in and do deep work with people to help the person resolve. Bessel van der Kolk, that I talked about here a few times, the body keeps the score, is one of the most prominent trauma specialists in the world. And he said in one of his lectures, if there's only talking, there's nothing happening. There needs to be some going into the memory base of the person in order for them to get resolution. And he was actually the one of them, the people that developed the EMDR technique, tapping and all of that, which is an amazing technique to help people to disconnect from those old feelings. So having said this, all of this, we're coming into the fourth step. And what we need to know is that we can plainly go through the four-step work without deep trauma work. And if we don't have the ability to do that, we should only do it that way, you see. And so what I have actually specialist in is something that all of you guys will experience with me, is that because of my ability and my experience to do work with people, I can quite often get to the core of or the root of the matter. And I will show that to you as we go through the columns in the four-step work, as we go through those columns. The columns are such those in those columns. There's miracles after miracles, because they are there, and we step into each one. We get a new understanding in each one, and then in the fourth one, which is the last one, there's Rocky. When we step into the fourth one, we will have come around. There has become a change in us, coming from being a victim of, coming from self-pity, which is a very understandable situation, as we are victims of our circumstances. I will explain this better as we go further into the material. Welcome, Sakir. I can see you're back in Jordan. Good to see you.
I'm traveling for 2 days, just got here.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, relax and enjoy.
Sure.
I'm going to be talking quite a lot today.
Let's see
Okay.
how the jet lag goes.
Thank you. Okay, so as we go forward now, let me see. I have. Let me check where we can start here. Yesterday we did the third step work. We renewed our understanding of of that. Let me see. I'm gonna share screen. Okay. I'm gonna make this larger. Okay, am I in presenter view? Can anybody say it out loud? Or is this?
Yes, you are. You're in presenter mode. We can see it.
Yeah, so is it just one slide for you? Because I have
Yes.
two. Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Good, good, good. So here I'm putting in relapse systems and this symptoms. And this is something that I'm putting up before we go into the fourth step. Another addition here. Why is that? Because relapse happens when we haven't learned the fourth step. That's when relapse happens. So this 4 through 9 is really a relapse prevention. And then the 10, 11, and 12 is practicing relapse prevention as we go forward. Good to know. So here are symptoms. I hope you see them. They're little, the letters are a little small, but I hope you see it okay. So we need to take a look at what are the things that get us into relapse. And we may talk about it as a group a little later. So keep score on this. So one is exhaustion. Allowing ourselves or oneself to become overly tired. This is quite often in connection to having to be busy, being busy, making ourselves busy, which might be work addiction. And we do this so that there's no time to face up to our facing personal frustrations. So for years, I was just always so busy, and everybody admired me for how much I worked, how much I did, and bloody bloody. And it was so that I didn't have to deal with a lot of my issues. It was, and people that do this, they hit their bottoms, they burn out. They burn out. So exhaustion, working yourself to exhaustion. And of course, there's other things that make you exhausted, like toxic relationships and people and situations. Allowing yourself to be caught up in toxic situations. Second one is dishonesty. Begins with a pattern of little lies, escalates to self-delusion and making excuses for not doing what's called for. Dishonesty is a huge part of relapse, and it's sneaky. It's the same as when we get to that place, we're basically up in the red zone of the barometer that I showed you yesterday. We're in the red zone when we're dishonest, and the voice becomes prominent. Oh, it's not so bad. It's like the little lies that come up, and then they escalate. 3 is impatience. I want what I want now. And you will see that we have taken a look at that in how we misuse our instincts and our needs. That's a principal thing that we do. I want what I want now. Others must do what I think they should, or live the way I know is right. I think most of us probably do this, but the only thing we need to get to is we need to realize that we are doing this so that we can be aware of our selfishness. And as we go into the fourth step, we're learning and understanding where we're keeping ourselves in the poor me syndrome. Nobody's doing what I want them to do. So argumentative, no point is too small or insignificant not to be debated. Some people have that, to the point of anger and submission. And know that not everybody is having all of these symptoms, you guys. Depression. Well, depression is a huge thing for most of us that have addictions because it centers in the dopamine receptors. Really, when we overuse, or whether that is substances or behaviors, we know that affects our dopamine receptors, and they cannot give us a normal well-being, sense of well-being. So we don't have well-being. We are deprived of feeling like a normal person. So what else is there to say about that situation? We get depressed. We have anxieties, for sure. So depression can become very deep, and it can be also something that has come for other reasons for a person, for sure. But I think we will learn more and more that addictions and the way that our brain circuits get depleted can be and are possibly a major contributor to the depression. And if we look at the young generation that is, in danger of suicides, more so, it looks like, than even before. What are those kids doing? They're in the computer, they're on the social media, and they're eating pizzas on their own in their rooms, and sodas. And then they start doing drugs. And, so it's a no-win situation for so many people. Enough of that. Frustration. Frustration is controlled anger, resentment. When things don't go according to our plans, lack of acceptance. And so this is basically, we have frustration, but we need to know that it is anger and resentment. And we'll go into that more later. Then we have the self-pity, feeling victimized, put upon, used, unappreciated, convinced we are being singled out for bad luck. And I'll talk about this one as we go into the 4-step columns, for sure. Cockiness. Got it, mate. Now all there is, I know all there is to know. This is where we get to, once we get abstinent, we start floating. We float. We lose our groundedness because we have a sense of, I have arrived, I've gotten it. And if you remember from the Bill story, where he had arrived, that was in his work, and soon after he had not arrived. Okay, so then we have complacency. No longer sees the value of the daily program, meetings, contact with other alcoholics or food addicts, food addicts. And they stop having their relationship with sponsors. And this is why, and the experience, let me say it like this. The experience is that when we have a sponsor that we have a regular contact with, that is there for us and we are for them, we form a lifeline. And that lifeline, how do you say that? We nourish with the connection with each other. So when and if we no longer see the value of a daily program, meetings and stuff, that's when this lifeline, we either let go of it or we keep it, and the one on the other hand, on the other end of the line, is there until you let them go. And if we let them go, we're in self-will. If I don't have support, I am on my own. I am on my own willpower. And as we all should know now, willpower does not work for addiction. So you can see the essentiality of having this support person. Okay, so expecting too much of others. Why can't they read my mind? I remember when I was married, I was so angry at my husband because he didn't read my mind. He didn't do what he should have known. Poor man. I've changed. What's holding them up? If they do what I know is best for them, this leads to feeling misunderstood and unappreciated. And so letting up on disciplines. This is where we look at, okay, so what is mine to do in the whole equation? We're supposed to surrender to not deciding on our own, but that does not mean that we don't have the responsibility to take care of business. I call it clean house. Wash the floors and clean the house. That's mine to do. When I do that, I feel good because I've done what is good and right for me to do. One of those is the discipline of getting to the store, having the food ready, sending in the check-ins, doing the program that I am learning to do. That's the discipline. This is what we can use our willpower for, and we should. Using mood alternating chemicals. So that's another one here. Some people may be using some drugs that are mood alternating. And for those that do, quite often this is impacting relapse. People that do heavy sleeping aids, for example, quite often have issues with abstinence and relapse. And there's, of course, other medication that can really, really affect the person in that way. Alcohol does that as well. And I cannot really say it strongly enough. You know that what alcohol does, it becomes a gateway drug for food addiction. Because if we listen to Dr. Lustig, it's the same thing happens within the body when we drink and when we eat sugar and flour and overeat. So what does that tell us? Are we going to open ourselves up to the risk or to Russian roulette again with that? That's a question. And also with the other chemicals possibly. So we need to be very vigilant with our clients and with ourselves if we're using different chemicals, and be open about it to your support person.
Esther, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
What's your opinion on caffeine, coffee, tea?
Okay, so I drink a little bit of coffee. I remember when I started my abstinence, I was suggested to stop coffee, and I thought I became the devil himself. It was such a big no. I was really addicted to coffee. And the thing is, for some people, they may need to take out coffee as well as because it's such a trigger. It is another addiction, though. And I see that for many people, they can have some coffee, and possibly more so than the decaffeinated coffee, so that they're not getting heavy dosages of it. I am, my experience on my own recovery was that we had in my 12-step program when I started, we could drink coffee, we could drink soda, we could have sugar-free gum or even some sweeteners. And I did all of it. And I am abstinent 21 years. I, however, needed, so these in the beginning specifically became like crutches for me. And as I got more and more recovered, I just, hardly ever use any sweeteners. Sometimes in my skyr in the morning, just a little bit and stuff like that. And I have like a cup of coffee in the morning and decaf a cup or two in the afternoon. And but I never do the gum because that is something I needed to take out altogether. But the other is something that is not addictive to, it is something, as crazily addicted personality I am, is okay for me. Then we can also talk about different foods. For some people, people can use grains. I cannot. That's where my addiction comes up. I'm more so than with sugar, basically. It's interesting, the things that some people can do and others cannot. So I would never urge anybody in early recovery to, if they are able and capable of letting go of this, and obviously need to, then we need to take it out. Anything that triggers needs to be taken out, and that we cannot decide on ourselves. We need to have strong support for using that or not. Does that answer your question, Cheryl? You want to say more about it?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Good question. Thank you. Okay.
Esther,
Yes.
can I comment?
Yes, sure.
Okay. I have two things. Just from our experience also.
Yeah.
Now, first, I think honestly, my take on artificial sweeteners and our experience with all the people that we helped and myself and everybody that we worked with, your brain doesn't tell the difference, sugar or artificial sweetener. And especially at the early stages of abstinence, it's a total no. Now, what we've been doing, going back to caffeine, we eliminate things one thing at a time. So the essentials will be sugar, flour, and anything that lights your bulbs in the brain that creates the cravings. But usually in 12 weeks, we establish a benchmark. And usually caffeine, depending on the tolerance of the person, what they're used to, rarely that it will affect, especially in our part of the world, because they are very heavy caffeine drinkers. So their tolerance to caffeine is high. If we take caffeine from day one, they will never continue. So usually we just keep eliminating item by item until we know that Esther can drink coffee, Rocky could tolerate, wheat, but also to do this, we keep a log of everything that goes in everybody's mouth.
Yeah, right.
It has to be, I think, gradual. And until now, honestly, anybody that went to artificial sweeteners relapsed.
Okay.
That's our
And-
philosophy at core too.
Yeah.
We have them eliminate.
Yeah, and you know what? I agree with you that it's a great risk to use the sweeteners. And I did that, and it was a crutch for me. I don't know how I would have survived if I hadn't had it. And it doesn't affect me today. And so I'm just saying that not so that you guys think you can do it. This research tells us that what Rocky is saying is right. People don't distinguish between. But so let's
Everybody's different.
yes, that's the thing, Rocky. Thank you for saying that. We are different, and we need to but we can't what I am saying also when it comes to abstinence, we need to have a base though that we base our abstinence on, knowing what it is that's going to be the most triggering. I take out absolutely don't suggest sweetness at all, but then in treatment, as you guys do, I do need to step out to people and support them where they are. And they may not always be ready for everything I suggest to them, and not able or capable. So like you were saying, we kind of draw them in and hope for the best.
I don't usually give that choice.
No, I don't. I try not to do it, but when I have clients that can't do literally what I suggest, I step into it with them, and I look at it individually with each person. Most will do what I suggest as a base. Okay, let's keep going here. And yeah, wanting too much, setting unrealistic goals, not providing for short-term successes, placing too much value on material success, not enough on the value of spiritual growth. And this comes out very much so for the food addict around the weight and the body image. If we're losing the weight, we're okay. If not, this is not a program for me. And we want to have lost it all in a month, most of us as we go into this, for sure, the ones that need that. Forgetting gratitude. I can't stop what's the word for it? I just really suggest gratitude lists. Gratitude lists bring us in our mind to a half full glass instead of staying in the half empty glass. And there is like, if we are in the half empty glass, then we are in a slip the slip begins in our mind. So really writing out the lists, the gratitude lists are so important. And when you stop doing that, you will probably be slipping already slipping into a slip. And then it can happen to me. This is when we kind of float. We're not grounded. Oh yeah, I got it. And now I know what to do. And going from there. And it is interesting when people go into this phase, and it is a phase that I see quite often with most of my clients, one time or the other, is that everything that they've learned disappears. It just disappears from the mind. And when they come back, they realize that they had forgotten everything that they've been taught before, quite often, not always, maybe. Okay, omnipotence, a combination of several attitudes listed above, leads to ignoring danger signs and disregarding warnings and advice from fellow members. So this is these are relapse symptoms, you guys. And, you may want to print this out and keep it somewhere for you to take a look at where you're at as you go forward in treatment.
Esther, it's Jessica. I have a question.
Yes, who is that? Jessica.
When we look at when we look at relapse, the symptoms we're looking at right now. So prior to coming into the program, I lived all of these every single day. They don't just go away after I've done step 3. And so thinking as a professional, not as someone with a sponsor, how do we, is it like a goal of treatment to teach people how to live different than this? Because it doesn't just come natural. It's not a light switch. And so, as we're going into step 4, I'm still thinking this way a lot of the time. So, and I know Blueform, he teaches, you don't really relapse until you've done 4 through 9. You're just continuing your behavior. So how do you look at that?
The same way, this is just a behavior that people have when they don't have the tools for recovery. It's a behavior, and it is what has come out of live experiences, like we were talking about in the 3rd step. We have the buildup of the personality, and these are ways that we deal. These are reactions coming from distorted personality, basically. And this is why I'm demonstrating this. So even to put more emphasis on the necessity of working the model so that we can stop being in these behaviors. And we can say, I'm not going to be dishonest, never again, like a million times. But if we don't have a program of action that helps us not do that, then we can't do anything about it. It's going to come up again and again and again. And it will come up. And that's what we need to know. All of these come up because we are built of defects of character. We're the clean children of Eve, and we're the dirty children of Eve. We have both of these traits. And to get out of these, we need a program of action. Once we start learning to do that, dealing with really, dishonesty, impatience, being argumentative, anything of this, and this will start coming up, we'll need to get aware of it and then use the program, the model, to deal with it, to get to a turnaround. Take responsibility. 12-step work, recovery work is all about taking responsibility. All about that. Tina, go ahead.
I wanted to, if it's okay, just from my experience that Jessica, just responding to your question too, is that the action of steps 4 through 9 are the practice of how to deal with, because all those relapse symptoms are human symptoms. They're human, they're human. They're not just like addict. I mean, human beings without God and without a practice of a spiritual life and actual action steps. I mean, I appreciate what you said, because before going through step 4, like I just did a couple months ago, I didn't have a way. I might have had an awareness that I was being impatient or that I was being too demanding or my expectations were unrealistic, but I didn't know what to do with that. I just didn't know what to do with that other than to be depressed and self-piteous and angry, whatever. But the brilliance of step 4 and 5 as a beginning of action, this is how we look at things. We make these lists. That has been life-changing. And so what I've experienced just even through the holidays with things that happened is that I responded differently because I did that work. And because I'm in 10, 11, and 12, I'm remembering, and because I have meetings and a sponsor and I talk to fellows and I am not doing this by myself, and the awareness that there's a presence that stays frontal, it stays in the front of my mind. It's not subliminal, it's conscious. And so that's the hope. That's the brilliance of these steps. For me, this is what I've experienced. And so it's a great, what you just said is a great question. And I just wanted to say there is hope that I'm still human and I'm learning how to respond. I'll have the first thought, which that is seriously annoying me. I can't control it. But then the second thought, because of the practice, is I have a power greater than myself. Why am I so upset? What is that about? Why do I feel so triggered? Oh, because, and then I have my own personal things because I've done some inventory in step 4. And columns 3 and 4 have just been like, but anyway, I'll stop.
Thank you, Tina. That's
you.
great. Okay, so thank you, Tina, and Jessica as well. So now we're going to start going into the 4th step. And I want to start it with reading a little bit from the big book about where it starts the 4th step. And I will not read the whole big book for you or with you. I seriously do hope that you have listened to Guttorm's recordings, because then you will have a much deeper understanding of what we're talking about. But we are kind of dropping into the book and dropping into the material as we go forward. So I'm on page 64 in the English version of the big book. And they've been talking about the 3rd step. And yeah, I'm not going to read the 3rd step here because we've kind of gone through a lot of material on it. So I'm just going to start on the fourth step. So therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. In the owner if the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. So we did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failures. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. So basically, what we're talking about here is, yes, we have all of these defects of character. We have a lot of assets as well. They get all mixed up in the making of life. And for many of us working in this work, obviously not very successfully. And so we're looking at that we have personality traits that aren't working for us. And then we may have others that are. And so the fourth step is basically just really fact finding what that is and is not. So, just to kind of also simplify the work. We need, and that's what I like about this is why I'm reading from the big book, is that this kind of work can become so complex, but we need to see the simplicity of doing the work as well. So if I have character defects like dishonesty, arrogance, jealousy, frustrations, resentments, all of this, if I have that, and I do, then if I have those, I need to realize it, that I have them, and I need to decide if this is something that benefits me or not. And I can tell you, sometimes I want to be resentful. Stay there. but that's a resolution for the sixth step. We'll go there also. But we are just now starting to investigate. It's an investigation that is coming up for all of us. Resentment is the number one offender. So we're coming to resentment. So what is resentment? Resentment is re-feeling again and again and again, something that is not good. It is, I did a boo-boo. Let's say I did some kind of a boo-boo. And I was struck with shame about what I did. And then for the next 5 days, I can't think about anything else, but, oh my God, everybody saw me do this and heard me say this. And what am I going to do? What do they think about me? So this can be one. And it's really like, I remember hearing somebody talk about, it's like a football game or a soccer game or any of those. When somebody does like a strikes in his own mark, or what I don't know how you call that in English, puts the ball into the wrong place, wherever. I hope you understand me. And, there's this cameras on it. Oh my God. Oh my God. He made a self mark, this guy, and they show it again and again and again and again and again and again, and they'll come back to it like 50 times for the rest of the, the soccer game or the football game. This is resentment. This is resentment, something that triggers shame, guilt, fear, and different feelings, basically, within. And it says here, is a number one offender. Offender of what? Of us losing our abstinence. Of us losing our abstinence. It destroys more alcoholics, and I will add food addicts, than anything else. And what I see in my clients and myself, and I've needed to learn the hard way, is that it's the small resentments, it's the tiny little irritations that come up that we need to be mostly aware of, because we usually discard them. Oh, that's nothing, that's nothing, that's nothing. And then we have like 50 such, and they have built up the emotional barometer before we know, you see. So it's being vigilant about how, what, frustrations, anger, resentments. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So what they're saying is, yes, we have an abstinence. Yes, we have support. And we're working on our mental obsession, learning about, the personality, the ego, and all of that stuff. But now we need to understand about the spiritual malady. Interesting. So once, what we're really doing now is to work on all the things that we have been talking about, so that we can get to our malady, our spiritual malady, which is how to say that, our defects of character, basically. It's the defects of character. That's our spiritual malady, and specifically the ones that we're not aware of. So all of this is to be and become aware. So in dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. So now we're learning. The big book is such a great book for teaching. It gives directions, and now we're getting directions. So listen very carefully. This is what we're going to do. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up. And when we are in this state, we get a burnout. It's too much. It becomes toxic. But I'm not saying other people are great, but it's our own toxicity that brings about the burnout. It's our own toxicity. So this is why we're doing this work, so that we untoxify ourselves, basically, spiritually. On our grudge list, we said opposite each name are injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, or our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? So these are the first three columns on the fourth step. So before I go forward, I'm going to open up the share. Oh, okay. Maybe for my time. Maybe we'll take a 10-minute break now, and then we'll come back to I'll show you the, I will share screen with the 4-step. So 10 after, we'll come back. I'm putting the, so here we are, we're continuing on step 4. And I'm sharing screen now. We're going into the PowerPoints. And I think I need to do this. So what I am seeing now, the question asked why, because I don't have my 2 screens. I have just one at this point. And
We see step 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory.
yeah,
Uh,
and you don't see the next slide.
Nope, just the one.
Okay, great. That's how it should be. Okay, got it. There's some toolbar here bothering me. Oh boy, what's happening? Oh, here we go. Okay, so step 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. This is what we've been reading about. And so we need, what we're being asked to do is to not be fearful. And if you're anything like me, I was so fearful. This was about the most fearful thing that I could imagine having to go through. It was like, I tell you, I tell this story. I started Al-Anon like 40 some years ago. I may have told you this story. And I was going to be, of course, Esther, here to the rescue, the best codependent in recovery in the world, of course. And I got to the 4th step. And when I read it and realized, it was like, uh-oh. It was like, no way. And I, of course, was not abstinent and really sick in my disease at that point. Took me almost 20 years to get abstinent in my food after that. And only then could I face up to doing this work. Only then. I needed to be abstinent for me to. Just a second here. Need to bring all my little animal herd here. Okay, so for your life to change, you need to change. That's the essence of it. I needed to change. I needed to get ready to walk into my fears. And it is exactly that. We need to be willing to search and be open to and stepping into our fears as we do this work. We really do. And we need to know that if we're going to have a different life, we need to make a change in our life for us to get a different outcome. So here's guidelines on how to get out of a hopeless situation of anger, self-pity, and fear, which is the dilemma of the person with an addiction. And so that's basically where we're stuck. We're stuck in hopelessness. We're angry. We are stuck in self-pity and fear. Those are the things that really stop us from getting ahead in our lives. So this is the recovery model is in action, and that is we begin with an inventory And we assess our liabilities and the owner equity. And we're doing 4 lists. It's resentments, fears, relationships, and sex relationship, that is, and then how we have harmed people, others. And so let's start with going into the next one here. Again, for your life to change, you need to change. So we're starting to do the work on the resentment. So what we will do, I'm going to show you here. The review of resentments. This is an example of a resentment column paper that I will be putting on so that you can print out. I have one that you can, if you can get into it, you can write directly into it. I'm not sure. We're trying to get that online for you, but otherwise it just would be pages for you to print out in order to do the work on them. So it's got column 1, I'm resentful at, and we're listing, I'll go over that, people, places, things, why I'm resentful. And then we get the column 3, which is the self, how that is affected by what is happening to us. And then what's missing from this one is basically the prayer. We'll go into that, which is I find needs to come in between column 3 and 4. And then we go into the column 4 and look at how we're keeping ourselves in this vicious cycle of being. I'm going back here. And so we list people, institutions, and principles with whom we are or were angry. So quite often, and when people do this the first time, like when I was suggested to do this, also many years ago, I was suggested that I'd start and put an inventory of my whole life. And so I started, when I did this, I took a week off of work to do this because I was really going to get to the bottom of my disease and get well. And I was committed. And not everybody maybe needs to do that, but I for sure needed to do that. And when I did my 5th step, it took a whole day. We started very early and ended very late. It was a long day of going over all my resentments, fears, sex inventory, and harms. So it's not just something that you kind of do without effort. You need to put the work into this. This does not happen on its own. And I can tell you right away, this is something that you don't have no fun doing. You have no fun doing this. So, but you still need to do it. And I urge you to really give yourself the time. What I suggest for people to do is to set aside every day, even if it's only 10 minutes, just to start writing, And you may not, for this one, want to do like 1,000 resentments that come up, but people have done that because that's the reality. Our whole lives are full of resentments. That's our lives. We are full of fears. We have had all kinds of relationship issues. And all of these have affected us in severely in our personality and the way we react to life. So we list the people, places, and things. It can be, and if we go to the next page, we have on the slides, we have what that might be. That's the mother, father, boyfriend, lovers, brother, sister, sponsors, employers, 12-step friends, acquaintances, aunts, so on and so forth. We have suggestions there. Then we have institutions, which might be any kind of authority at work, or it could be religious, child protection, the church, correctional system, education system, health system, races, religion, society. Those are the kind of institutions that we could put in there. And then there's principles like so much like adultery, death, God. And I tell you, I don't think there's anybody that I worked with that hasn't been really resentful at God, or for even if they didn't really believe in it, you know, they were still resentful because they felt entitled. We so often feel entitled. I shouldn't have to deal with this disease. Why me? Why me? And again, why not me? Why not? And so what for what it's worth, God probably, or this almighty whatever power, or this life-giving force, or whatever, how you see it and look at it, should be there because it did not do for me what I needed at the times that I needed it. So that could be heaven and hell. It could be sin, or whatever comes up for you. And it can be so many different things. So this is the first column. All you do is just write the first column first. You don't do anything else. You get printed out, you print out like 10 pages or so, at least. I don't know how many pages I ended up printing out for me. And you just start on column 1. I'm angry at, sorry about that. No. Here you go again. Yeah, I'm angry at my mother, my father, my siblings, my ex-husband, my whoever. Everybody, put them in there. Put them in there even when you don't think you still have resentment. When you think that, well, you know, they didn't really mean bad. But we'll take a look at that as well. Tina, you had something.
Please tell me to just keep my hand down and say nothing for the next 2 or 3 hours. I just wanted to share that something that was helpful for me, because I have been so disconnected from my feelings, and even the word anger, as you said, Esther, earlier, it was never safe for me to be angry at anyone ever.
Yeah.
So as I was beginning this process, and it's kind of looking at this blank page and kind of numb, like I don't even know how I feel, what helped me identify anger was if I thought of a person and just felt any kind of a physical like prick in my gut, like just just a little prick, a little irritation, a little anything, I took that as being, I think that might be anger. Or if I thought about a certain person or institution and I could feel an adrenaline rush, or I really actually would not want to actually see this person. And if I were in the presence of this person, I'd feel very uncomfortable. That was another kind of litmus test of, I think I have, that might be an anger resentment. So anyway, I don't know if that's
Thank-
helpful for anyone, but that was helpful for me.
Absolutely, Tina, and very good input. And it's not only anger what we're asking for, because resentment has so much else in it. And it can also be when I feel more than or less than, you see. And it can be any discomfort. How's that? Any discomfort in regards to people, places, and things. Put it out there. And, it may, as you start working it, not be huge, but then on the other hand, it may. And this was such a good point, Tina, with not being numb and not realizing anger issues and or other feelings, what really is behind it. And specifically if we're very codependent, we are so passive. We're so passive, and then we're aggressive, passive aggressive, in all our dealings with. So if we feel that we are passive towards somebody, we wouldn't be able to express ourselves, but then be angry or resentful or talk behind the person's back or something like that. That is obviously somebody that needs to be there. I talk about also putting, like, parents and people that we really love and we know that love us. We are not putting people down, setting them up on the resentment list. We're not. We are simply putting people up there that, in spite of their good intentions, may have hurt us in the process. And most parents do, one way or the other. That it's not intentional, but we sit up with, and sometimes I can see you, Tina, knocking you. Maybe it was, I don't know, could be, but usually at least this was the best that they could do. Let's look at it that way. This is the best that they could do, but it wasn't the best for me. Was not the best for me. So that's why I need to put that person on my resentment list as well. So it's we're expanding here. And I'm hoping that for our purposes now, some people would want to really dive in, and I urge you to. Others have done this before, and you may not have so much. But I still urge you to dive into whatever it is. And if it is something from the past, yes, then we put it on there. If it is something from the day to day, something's really happening around you in your life at this present moment, that's huge. That's a real piece of work that I think possibly might even be more important for us at this point than much of the earlier trauma, even though that we really need to take a look at that as well. Okay, so you all got that we write out the first column to completion to the best of our abilities, whether it's 3 or 100 and something, depending on you. And I had 130 something on my first. It was really huge. And it was a real cleansing of my whole life. I went really all out, and I was searching, and I was fearful, and I did it anyway. And I even disclosed things with this person that I had never thought I'd be able to tell anyone ever. But you don't have to do that. Right now, you cannot think about that. You guys just need to do this list for you. Need to get this list down for you. Okay, so I'm going to go back here a little bit. So here's the next thing we do is we ask ourselves why. Why are we angry? Or why are we resentful? Why am I hurt? Why do I feel righteous about being angry? And that's a big one for most of us. Why? And that's column 2. So once you've done column 1, you go into column 2 and you ask yourself why. So I had parents that in so many ways did well, but they were very, very sick people. And they were very abusive. And from that kind of bringing up kids place where there was physical violence and all kinds of different. So I put my mother on, my father, and the cause I'm resentful at my mother. Oops, I'm sorry, you guys. And the cause was that she was spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically abusive to me. And yes, that's it. That's what it was. And what did that do to me was that I retaliated. So I kind of developed into something that I might not have if I had had more loving upbringing. Let's say it like that. And so it really, really hurt me. And I can tell you, going through all of this work, and in the end, my mother becoming abstinent and doing this work as well, we parted as she died a few years back with the most respect for each other and a lot of deep love for each other. There was nothing left but love and respect. But it wasn't when I started doing this work. I can tell you that. Cindy, do you have a question?
I just wanted to share, I had a similar experience with my mother was a very sick, an abusive person. And through this work, you know, it's why I moved to Florida when she got dementia. And my whole life, she was never said a kind word to me. But before she passed, and after she had had a stroke and wasn't talking, before she passed, she held my hand and thanked me. And that was a miracle. That was a miracle of a whole life. I waited for it. Nothing I did for her was ever good enough or appreciated. But miracles do happen through this work. You know, it's so much. I wanted to change her my whole life. And then I just, you know, gave that up and was doing what I needed to do. So it's a miracle.
Thank you, Cindy. It's a testament to what this work can do for us, for sure. So the cause, we need to find the cause. So what I see usually in the second column is that we have maybe been abused. And, you know, it can be abused with a small a or a capital A, you know, or traumatized. But we minimize. We minimize what has happened to us. Well, it wasn't so bad. And I forgiven my mother for this, and the thing is, if we don't at one point or the other really get in touch with what has been done to us, I believe we can never really heal from it. We cannot just run over it and say, well, I'm not going to think about this anymore. That's not what is reality of life. In some way or fashion, we need to accept what happened and then get past it. So at this point, as we do this, if we come to a place where there has been trauma, abuse, let's say, we may not do any deeper work on it than just to acknowledge it. And that's really what the only thing is what is needed right now, is to just acknowledge it. In my sessions, I quite often I see that my clients benefit from when I support them to get to the root of what has happened to them in a way of their feelings around it. To really go back and feel, so that they know whether they need to do more work on this later or right now or whatever. And I'm not always suggesting to do any heavy duty work as we're doing this, but sometimes we do have those kind of sessions with me and possibly others. But it's not really what I'm saying is things will come up, and for the most part we'll understand, we accept, okay, I realize now that this was abuse, what I had to go through as a child. I realize that now, and I can feel the hurt from that. And then I table it for later. But it's there. It's like when somebody has abused you, you go to the police and you do a report. And the report is there if you need it, or if you're abused again, or this person abuses again. The report is there. So you are setting up your report in this. Okay, then we have the column 3. That's column 3. And this is where we look at the self. You see up here, it says self. It affects my social instinct, security instinct, sense instinct, and my ambitions to all of those 3. And basically what we do is we check. But once we're learning what this means, I think it is quite beneficial to take somebody through, or sometimes I demonstrate with my story. We can take a look at doing that maybe later today. I'm kind of demonstrating about my mother. So the way my mother abused me, and the way that I was brought up, did that affect my self-esteem? Absolutely. I never felt enough. And I didn't, and remember when we were looking at the instincts in the 3rd steps, that's where that material is. We need to look at that when we do these. So what about the self-esteem? Let's go back. Here we go. Self-esteem. How we see and value ourselves, positively or negatively. Healthy self-esteem will support us in taking care of ourselves and gaining the respect of others. When we misuse, we may start, acting out in our character defects in one way or the other. We try to run people over. We demand to be center of attention, and different things. And it is like trying to fill a bottomless pit. When we don't, when we've not had the care, when we've not felt that we were appreciated, that we were enough, that we were brilliant and lovable in our lives, this is where we go. And out comes neediness. Because we did not get what a child is supposed to get when we are being brought up. We will experience that we may be 60, 70 years old and we've never had the love or felt, but let's say felt, that this was satisfied for us. And we need to learn to do this for ourselves, because nobody else can fill this void. No one can. But this work can help us fill this up. Neediness comes out of this, self-pity and neediness. And you need to know when I talk about those issues that those issues are a consequence of us not having been brought up in a sufficient way. And then, of course, if we don't feel this, we start developing character defects, like in order to try to compensate for the loss of that. Okay, I'm gonna go back. See. Okay, personal relationship. Those are the two that are usually just put out there. If my self-esteem is not high, I will have issues in personal relationships. And I am like an introvert, outrovert personality, pretty much. And interestingly, introvert for some people that see me, but very much so. And I always have been, and I was shy, but mostly I didn't have the self-esteem to really be who I am and was. And but then I would lunge out with my brilliant personality. I had a lot of gifts from God, and I do things, became an opera singer for God's sake, you know. And the things that I've done, when I look back, my God, it's just like amazing. But it always came out of lack of self-esteem. I never thought that I was good enough, ever, no matter how successfully I did things, no matter how much cheer I got for my singing. I would never feel good enough. And I think, well, with my opera and singing career, I couldn't pursue that because of my disease, food addiction disease, first and foremost. but then again, also for this, because of this. And it's okay because I have the best job in the world today. Okay, then we go to the security instinct. So yeah, so just to go back again, I've done column one, my mother, because she was abusive and didn't give me the love that I needed and appreciation that I needed. It affected so that I had low self-esteem. I had difficulties in relationships with people. I had trust issues with people. I was, of course, very, very codependent. And in that, you put yourself outside and look inside in relationship. So you're either under somebody or you're over somebody. So you're never like walking just besides people. And I remember later in life, and when I was in recovery, when I first experienced that, I was like 50. When I first experienced walking among other human beings, not to be putting myself higher than or feeling less than. That was a beautiful spiritual experience for me, for sure. Okay, so security is another instinct that we need to feel secure. And there's two ways. One is emotional, of course. That has to do with the social instinct, basically. It has to do with relations with other people. When we have low self-esteem, difficulties with our social, we probably will have emotional issues as well. We don't have the trust and the stability to have emotional uh, um, sense, being emotionally balanced. Then there is the material, which is to understand that, how secure are we in life, and living with rageaholics, alcoholics, drug abusers, or any of those sorts, or any kind of disease like psychiatric diseases. Many are brought up with parents that have severe anger issues, depression. My father was such a man, very sick. You'd never know if his fist would go into the wall or not. When you live with that kind of insecurity in your life from early age, it becomes a part of exaggerated fear. And I talked about the fear that becomes an exaggerated fear because there's trauma. It's trauma reduced. No, not reduced. That's not the right word. Because of trauma and trauma, basically.
Trauma induced.
So, yeah, induced. Thank you, Rocky. So material recovery or security basically is when you have financial security, you have your housing, you have a way of, you have clothes on your back, you have the food coming up. And of course, in our societies, most of our societies, people do have a lot of security. And if security fails, the society kind of enfolds people. Like, for example, here in Iceland, the whole town that I used to live in some years back, just sank into the earth. Half of it just sank like a meter or two and it down, and then there is like volcanoes just a few kilometers close to it coming up, and we're expecting another soon. And these people all had to be evacuated from their houses, their homes, their work, their life. And in Iceland, we have the whole community of Iceland assist and help. Everybody has housing, everybody's finances are being helped in any and every way possible. The whole nation is holding on and under, and supporting this community because of what's happening there. This, of course, doesn't happen everywhere. We have societies that don't have the ability to do this. And fortunately, even though many things could be better in Iceland, we do. And so I think here in Iceland, even if there is poverty for some people, we have a sense of security around our living, how to live, and what, that there is something that will support us. And I think that makes a huge difference. And not in all countries or places do people have that, for sure. And they can lose everything, and there's nothing there to help and support them. So security will is necessary for us to, and I'm going to go back to our wonderful picture here. Here you go. I went over yesterday. So here are the social instinct, security instincts. So if we don't, so the security instincts is part of creating self, the ego, the personality. And when it's wronged, when there is no security, emotional or material, it causes fear, remember. Feelings of anxiety, agitation, uneasiness, apprehension, etc. And we talked about the social instinct, the different things, the need for belonging and acceptance and respect, recognition, to have healthy self-esteem. Pride is supposed to be pride here. And then we can possibly have personal relationships that are healthy. And then we have ambitions to both of these. And we'll go over those a little later. And the social instinct creates self as well. And when wronged, it creates resentment. And resentment can be all that we mentioned before, but it causes hurt, anger, and they come from rightly or wrongly held feelings of being injured or offended very often. And whether they're wrong or right, it doesn't really matter. What we need to take a look at here is, are we just what we're feeling? We're not justifying how we're feeling in these chapters. We're just noticing how we feel. We'll work on anything else and everything else later in the turnaround. But now I need to be the victim of what has been done to me at this point in the second and the third columns. Then, of course, we have the sexual instincts. And it is the two different acceptable, socially acceptable sex life. And it needs to be performed from our own principles. And then we have this hidden sex life that is contrary to our principles or society's principles. A lot of people, for example, are addicted to porn. And we have a lot of that, very accessible through our computers. And so there's infidelity happening in people's lives. And one of the addictions that is very hidden, because most of our sex tendencies tend to be very shamed and shaming for us, is infidelity and sexual hidden sexual agendas. And sex, of course, when we're performing sex, it produces oxytocin in our brain, which is, as we know, the oxytocin is the opioid that is actually, it's the same as when we give birth, when we're breastfeeding, when we have sex and orgasms. It really brings out such a huge, what's the word? Fulfillment, and it brings out in our brain chemistry a real, I can't remember what Guttorm said. It was like 300 point, it was a lot of numbers there about how sex and orgasm affects our brains in a positive way, and it can so easily become addictive for us. And I think many of us may actually experience a relationship that can be very addictive to us, sexual and otherwise, for sure. And it can be a real issue for people. Okay, so when our sexual instinct, it's part of creating ourself and personality. When it's wrong, it creates hurt and harm, hurt feelings, shame, pain, worry, even financial loss for others and also for ourselves. And, there's a lot of lust that can come up there for sure. Okay, going back and forth a little bit here. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the ambitions of these three. So ambitions is when we it's basically what we would want our life or want our lives to aspire to. That's basically what the ambitions are. I wanted to be a ballet dancer, and then I broke my leg and I couldn't be a ballet dancer. Fortunately, I also wanted to be an opera singer, and I got to do that. So we can have all these thoughts about, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, about how we hope for our lives to become and aspire to. And being a food addict and being fat was not one of the things that I wanted for myself. I can tell you that. And very early on, when I realized that this was an issue, I started trying to control it. And the thing was that no control worked, only the surrender and discipline. Only the surrender and discipline. And so was my mother, how she brought me up, did that affect my ambitions, social instinct, security, and sexual? And when I look at it, then I have to say yes, check, because it affected my life in a way that I didn't have and get what I needed to be happy, for my ego to know that it was okay. I did not get assurance that I was okay and that I was enough and that I was brilliant, that I was really, okay. Possibly just really Interesting person too. I don't know. You may not think so. I think so. So, so, so this is how we go into, and this is so that I understand in a deeper way why I develop defective reactions. So when I experience people that are not truthful, that hurt me in some way, abuse me, I retaliate and I react. Not from a person with, well, I right now, as I'm older and seasoned, I retaliate from self-esteem, good self-esteem for the most part. But it's still, there is a shadow of how I could never do that because of my upbringing. My reaction would be passive aggressive. I could not stand up for me. I could not say, okay, I don't want to be talked to like this. I don't want to be treated this way. I couldn't start saying that until after 50, you see. Those are the things that come, you may not have had that in your life, but that's one of the things that I needed to overcome. So I wouldn't say anything, but then I was brewing underneath with resentment and hurt and fear and feelings of I'm no good, and I would go into self-pity. Why me? How can everybody be so cruel to me? I'm always so nice to everybody else, and they just are so cruel to me. That's where I was in every part of my life. Always felt the victim of circumstances. I could never get out of it. I was stuck in this place. I was stuck. So I got this list, actually found it this morning from a friend of mine. He sent it to me. So payoffs for self-pity. Why is it good to just be stuck in self-pity? I thought it was wonderful. I get attention when I'm in self-pity. Poor me, I'm so poor. Used to be so poor with 3 kids and single parent, and I would thrive on it. I get attention for that. I get to be unassertive, not to take responsibility. I get to withdraw. Got a reason to withdraw. I can't stand up against this. I get to blame others. I get to be dependent. Other people are supposed to do for me. I get people to not put pressure on me. Don't put more. I'm already so overwhelmed with all of my tragedies and dramas. I get to manipulate people. I get to do nothing and sit and take no risks. I get to make others feel guilty. Manipulation. I get to avoid being confronted. I get to live in the past. I get to wallow in emotionalism. And notice this one. This is a tricky one, because this is the one that takes us back to eating every time. If I allow myself to be stuck in emotionalism. And it doesn't say that we shouldn't feel our emotions, no, but we cannot get stuck in it. So I get to think about eating, drinking, using drugs, because that's the solution. And I get not to see the truth of what has happened. I get to attract codependence, dependent. I get sympathy. I get people mad at me or they don't want to relate to me. I get to stuff feelings. I get to avoid responsibility. I get to avoid planning for the future. I get to renew all hurts and resentments. I get to have low self-esteem. I get to be dishonest. I get to be a martyr and feel superior. I get to feel like a victim. I have been so unjustly treated. I get to drink, use drugs, eat because staying sober isn't my responsibility. Feeling sorry for myself is. I'm sorry, you guys. It's not an easy reading. And I think, if I look at in memory at Esther, when she was starting to do this work seriously after becoming sober in the food and other substances, I could check in on all of these. This is where I'm coming from. And does it happen for me today? Oh, absolutely. But the difference today is that I kind of greet. I get to avoid responsibility. Oh, Esther, where are you now? Where are you now avoiding your responsibility? What is it that you need to do in order to clean this mess up? Every day I do the 10 step, which is the 4 through 9, in order to catch myself in all of these, because they come up. They come up every day. And that's the essence of this work. It is, I'm sorry we all had traumas and abuse in our lives, one way or the other. I'm sorry for that. And it has molded us. But today it is time for responsibility. And the responsibility is to do this work so we get a program of action to deal with the day and more be aware of what's really coming up in the day. Okay, what time is it? Okay, so what we need to do now is, before I go on, I want us to take a break. It's 1:15, and let's come back 1:45. The next hour. So we'll take a half an hour break here. I'll get to eat. I'll be very well nourished when I come back. And we'll go on, and I'll need to just do a little piece of work with you more, but then we'll have discussion as well. And we'll go over what the next steps are for you in order to start doing the work. Because now you need to just jump into it and try to do, as I said before, just a little bit every day. You don't have to finish it in a day, but if you do, that's great. Okay, come back in 30 minutes. Putting on. So we've kind of went through the first 3 columns and understood maybe a little deeper what they are about. Now, I'm going to read a little bit from the big book again, because the coming up is essential as well. So I'm on page 65 in the big book, and being there, I want you to, as you come to class, as you do this work, you need to have your big book or access to a big book, whether it's online or in your hand. You need to be reading this material. And it's interesting with the material in the big book. We can read it like a million times, and every time we do, it has a new meaning for us. And this is because every moment that we evolve, we change. We change. And so we can see and experience differently. So it's not a repetition to read again and again. And like this chapter now, how it works, the 5th chapter that we're working from, is how it works. These are the guidelines, the crux of working this work, and we get the guidelines, and in order to understand them, we need to read them. And I'm going over it, and then I suggest that you really go and read it for yourself as you go forward. So what's next here, if you don't have your book, is the examples that they have in the big book, and they have Mr. Brown, Jones, employer, my wife. And you may see that it's not mother, father, past traumas. It's what's happening now, or as a result of me being in the disease. He was an alcoholic, Bill was an alcoholic. And so we're kind of coming from, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown is a co-worker, and he is resentful of Mr. Brown because of his attention to his wife. And he told my wife that I had a mistress. Oh my God. And then Brown may get my job at the office. So what is it affecting? It's affecting sex relations, self-esteem, fear, sex relations again, self-esteem, and security, you see. So you can see how we need to take a look at, as we understand what that person is the cause of my anger, resentment, hurt, or whatever is there, what is it, and how it affects me. And these are the 3 columns now that we're working on. We're not to the 4th column yet. Mrs. Jones, she's a nut. She snapped me. She committed her husband to drinking. For drinking, he is my friend. She's a gossip. So that's this lady that he resents. And what is it affecting? Personal relationship, self-esteem. And they always put fear on the self-esteem, in parentheses, fear. And fear, in my opinion, and is basically comes under all of these. So we have my employer. I am resentful at him because he's unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking, and padding my expense account. So what is it? Self-esteem, fear, and security. I may lose my job. How severe is that? That is the basic insecurity. Then we have my wife, misunderstands and nags like Brown, wants house put on her name. Oh boy. What is affecting? It's affecting pride, personal sex relations, security. So this is how we can do it. We can be resentful at a coworker. What does this coworker do? Well, she talks behind my back. She undermines my work. She blatty, 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 whatever it is that we feel that person is doing. She's not sympathetic with me when I'm sick 3 days of the week because I'm overweight. You see, we're kind of finding those things that are happening in our lives. If and when we don't really have those, then we can fall back to something that is hanging on us from past relations. And this is why this is so important, because it is looking at the here and now, but it's also cleaning out all kinds of old garbage that we're clinging to. Cindy, go ahead.
So I've always had trouble with this because I couldn't relate to those things of what it affects. So I would know what I thought I was resentful at. It was never clear to me what the cause was, because in my disease, the cause was either my fault or something, like I couldn't see clearly what was going on. And I still have trouble with relating to how does it affect I don't see, I can see in Mr. Brown how it might affect my sex relations, but I will think everything affects my sexual relations. Everything affects my self-esteem. Everything affects everything. So I've had a really difficult time with this particular approach.
Yeah, I hear you, Cindy. Me too. And it's a really good point, because we need to get to reality of certain issues. It can't be vague. I'm just like, everything affects me, everything. It can't be that. It is the truth, though. It is the truth. But we do need to get certain things come up on the table here, so that we can learn to look at it from the needs, from the personality, how it's affecting us. And that can take time as we are learning to do that. So just rest in it and let it happen, Cindy. Tina.
One of the things that's helped me with the generalizing of just putting it in a category of self-esteem is to ask myself, when I feel this resentment, how do I behave? How do I behave? That gives me a clue as to internally actually how it's affecting me. So if my behavior is I isolate myself, I distance myself, or I talk badly behind this person's back because I need to feel superior, because I feel, I feel insignificant and not heard, whatever. That's really helped me. So I don't know if that can help anyone else.
Thank you, Tina. That's exactly what we do. And that's the issue of realization of the third column, basically. I call it the reaction. We can say the behavior. It's the same thing. What is my behavior, my reaction to certain people, places, and things as it comes up, maybe again and again, or maybe just once in a while. And then, but really seriously, it brings up a good point that, and I remember when I was beginning to do this work, I had the same problem. I didn't understand these instincts. I had no sense of it. I just didn't. And this is maybe why I put such a large emphasis on teaching about it, because and not only me, like Joe and Charlie, and Joe specifically, the Black Joe, he really wanted to bring that out. He's probably like us, had difficulty understanding this and getting to the crux of it. But yes, that was a good addition, Tina. Thank you.
Esther?
Yes.
From my early experiences in recovery, I always, especially this step, was a function of the sponsor that was helping. Like, they did it differently, and some did a really lousy job, some great job, but it's just how how would they guide? And of course, your knowledge. So I remember the first time you're talking about feelings. I don't even know that I was powerless. So,
Yeah.
you know, they ask me, are you powerless? No, I'm not powerless. I'm strong. But
Right.
yeah. So again, I think the guidance has a lot to do with it, you know,
Yes.
eventually who you're doing it with
Absolutely, Rocky.
and the methodology of it. At the end of the day, I think it's you learn how to deal with your own emotions and feelings. That's what matters. So they don't shouldn't take you to food.
Yes. Rocky, that's a good point here. And this is why I have been working hard on getting Guttorm with me and others to bring out material for professionals to teach this. Because when the professionals teach it, they have the capacity to come to it from a different and broader perspective. And that is not to minimize the 12-step work, which is usually sufficient, at least for what it is. And then people need to maybe do more work. We need to just start somewhere. But when we do this with qualified professionals, you get the understanding. And of course, you may get a really great sponsor, but you may not. And so that's the dilemma also. You wanted to say something.
That is very important because I just also over the past 9 years, just monitoring the people we help. This is the step people relapse on.
Yes.
And this is the step that most people refuse to do, especially here because we're closed.
Yes.
We have to push people, make them comfortable to do it.
Yeah, I know.
And you know, it's a challenge, I think.
It is a challenge. And this is really seriously the difference between working with really you know, supporting people to be abstinent and maybe have some support versus real recovery and treatment for addiction. Whatever substance or behavior we're working with, this is the work that needs to happen for the person to get the personality changes needed, because the brain, the biological part, has changed the brain, it's hijacked the brain, and in order to reverse that, we need abstinence and we need this kind of work. This kind of work. It's the crux. Thank you, Rocky. Okay, let's share screen and get on with it here. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit from the big book here again. I am on the bottom of 65. The page that I'm going to be reading is one of the most important read in the book, in my opinion, because it talks about how dangerous resentment is, and it correlates directly to what you were saying, Sakir, that this is the step that really takes us, or if we don't learn this step, it will take us to eating every time. This is the relapse step. Okay. So we went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong in our opinions. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. Blaming others. Everybody else is wrong. I must be right. So the usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. That's what happens. So sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. Okay, I didn't stand up for myself. No wonder this is, you know, person walk all over me because I am such a lousy person and blah, 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 whatever. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victory only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment, here we go, deep resentment, leads only to futility and unhappiness. Okay, here's the number one. What resentment does. It leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic or the food addict, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. Now we have another. It's infinitely grave. So I'm emphasizing the wordings that we're being told here. It is, we found that it is fatal. There's another one. It's fatal. And I'm telling you, we may not die, literally die, but once we've eaten, we spiritually die. We spiritually die. And that's the first in dying. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. This is why this is the spiritual malady. When we are in our resentments, we cut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol or food returns and we drink or eat again. And with us, to drink or eat is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics and food addicts, these things are poison. Again, it's poison. We turned back to the list. For it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. This disease kills. It kills us first spiritually, and then we go downward spiral. How could we escape? We see that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol or the foods. So this was our course. And now we're back to the lists here on the screen. And yeah, so this was, of course, we realized that people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. So I'm gonna go back to my mother. Was she spiritually sick? And the wording points to, matters being more dramatic than most people want to admit. But what is really being spiritually sick? It is basically being blocked for the sunlight of our spirit so that we hurt other people with our behavior. That's being spiritually sick or ill or not well or whatever, how we want to say it. we need to understand that when a person hurts another person, it's because something is wrong with them, and what's wrong with them is that they are spiritually, they are cut off from their spirit. On page 67, though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us. So the symptoms are in column 2, and how it disturbs us is column 3. These people, like my mother, like me, like ourselves, were sick too. So in these words, we're understanding that yes, my mother was sick. Result of that, if she hadn't been, I might have not been so sick myself, her daughter. But as a result of it, I developed a spiritual sickness as well. So the both of us are spiritually sick. She, in the behavior that she did in bringing me up and the way she was, me in my developing my personality and myself and the behaviors or reactions that I have, like the default, how I react and behave as a consequence of uh, different things happening. Couldn't be so many different things, but now as we talk about my mother, how I retaliate, how I became passive aggressive, and I can still be that if I'm not careful, because I learned it very well when I was younger.
Esther,
Yes.
when you say your mother was sick as you, do you mean she was a food addict or spiritually blocked from something else?
That's the spiritual blocking. Thank you for asking it, Saki. Because she may be an alcoholic or a food addict, and she was for sure, and a food addict. And but this is really understanding the spiritual sickness here. This is understanding that. Because when you can be a food addict and you can still treat your children right, and not come from a place of hurting, you see.
To a
But
certain extent.
what?
To a certain extent.
Yes, you're always going to, be hurtful if you are an addict with no recovery. You're cut away from the spirit. And, and it doesn't matter what the background is. When you are hurtful to other people, you are cut off from your spirit. Because when we are connected to our inner spirit, we are hearing our inner voice. The guidance, the moral compass, the conscience. And we're able to hear and perform from that place, not from our character defects that have developed because of our addiction, our whatever has been happening in our lives, and everybody has something. But the big thing in this is understanding that, yes, this mother did me this, and and how many years I spent just blaming her for my life, for how I was because of what she did to me. This is where I was stuck. This is where I was spiritually sick. And we need to understand that yes, somebody else can be very abusive to us, can be very spiritually sick, but we are defined by our reactions to other people. That's how we are defined. And that's what we're learning to do better. possibly. Okay, so we're coming to the prayer. And but before we go there, let me see what's happening. There we go. Getting all kinds of, yeah. So on the resentment form, you can see now that there is a column 4. What's missing from this one is I'm trying to get the one resentment form that has the prayer put in between the column 3 and the column 4. That's where I like it to be. But we're gonna work it in, even if it's not on this one. So column 4, we're not doing right away, but it is where we look at our part, how we are keeping ourselves in this vicious cycle of resentment. But before we go there, I'm gonna go back to page 67 on the top of the big book, and there's a prayer there. And I remember when I read this prayer first, I got so pissed because it felt like I was supposed to pray for the people that were so bad to me. And what I'm gonna go through the prayer here, and I think I have it here. Let me see. Yeah, here we have it on site. So this is how it's written, and I'll show you when I am doing my work from this, I change this prayer, the wordings of it, and I'll explain to you. So the prayer is basically, we asked God to help us that are doing this work, show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. So what we are really asking for is to help God, ask God to help us have sense of tolerance, pity, and patience in the situation. So often we may be working on, what if we were working on like a child abuser? How hard would that be for the person to pray for that person, at least in the beginning? So I remember when I realized, help us, help me have tolerance, pity, and patience in the situation. And if I get to a place of tolerance, pity, and patience, am I going to be more able to have that patience toward even a child abuser? And my answer is right. I have a personal, yes, I have a very personal experience of doing that in my family. So eventually we may get there, but we may not be able to get there all the way and right away. And I have a very funny story from Joe and Charlie, when he came to Iceland, and the second Joe and this Charlie, they came to Iceland and did a weekend. And he told the story that he had gone into a business dealings with a man who had stolen his money and run off with it, left him broke or something like that. And Charlie, of course, hated this man with a vengeance for what he had done to him, and righteously so. Oh my God. So then when he was doing this work, his sponsor said, well, you need to be able to pray for this man. And Charlie first said, no way, I cannot pray for this person. He's not worth it, and all of that. Then the sponsor persisted, and the first prayer that Charlie could say for this man was, I hope this son of a bitch gets what he deserves. That was the first prayer he could say to him, and which was kind of funny. But the story keeps going. In a week, he was able to do the special prayer that we do in the 12-step work for other people when we need to get out of resentments toward them. And he was able within a week to start saying that prayer toward this guy. And a month later, guess what? This guy moves next door to Charlie. He moves next door. They had the back gardens coming together. And so since Charlie had come into recovery and was able to say the prayer, he understood and realized with the help of his support person, his own part in the deal. He needed to see and get humbled by what his part was in the whole equation with this man. So once he got clear on that, in the process of all of this work, he took his cup of coffee and knocked on the other guy's kitchen door, and they sat down, and Charlie asked him to forgive what was his part. And the guy, of course, really broke down and apologized as well, because this kind of work opened hearts. And I can't remember how long, but not so long after, the other guy died. And Charlie talks about this experience, it's a very, very strong recovery experience. Miracles happen when we do this work. Real miracles happen. It's not just, oh, it's so hard. No, we start doing it, and like all of a sudden we're thrown into, spiritual experiences and into the sun more and more. And I know sometimes people hate me because I have this smile kind of, stuck behind my ears most days. But it is this work. I'm content. And my smile comes very easily. So Tina.
My gosh, I just love that story, that Charlie story. And one of the things that's kind of sticking out in my head when we're looking at that prayer and how difficult it is to say that prayer when there's a really deep, deep hurt and anger. But the list that you shared about what is the benefit of holding on to self-pity, when I've worked this step 4 and looked at my behavior, how do I behave? How do I view myself in relationship to this person? And then look at how does this behavior and the way I think about it, how is it serving me? How is it, what is the benefit of keeping it? That, when I was able to look at that, and I got to a place recently working this 4th step where I had done enough of these, I had done enough of my resentments where I started seeing a pattern, and then I just started laughing. I'm laughing at myself going, why would you want to live like this? Why would you want to not be a responsible person? Why would you want to make other people feel guilty and be a martyr? Why? I mean, there was one day where I'm looking at just going, this is hilarious, actually. But doing that helped me get to a place where I could honestly say this prayer, and I've been praying it every day since I didn't reword it. It's a little reworded, but it's basically this. And I go through my whole list of everyone that was on my resentment list, and I continue to pray that and affirm that they're sick like I am, and that
Mhm.
God help, please surgically remove the resentment and the anger, and in its place, bring tolerance and patience and compassion. And how can I be of help and use to these, these institutions, people, whatever. But when I got to the place of seeing how the way I was thinking about them and my behavior, how it has not been serving me, that really helped me to go, okay, I can actually honestly pray this prayer and mean it. So
Thank you, Tina. So what helped me in really accepting this prayer was when I understood that I needed to pray for me, for tolerance, pity, or compassion and patience. Because if I did not have that, if I could not get to that place, nothing else can start happening. And when we continue when a person offended us, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick man." So when something comes up that triggers what mother did to me, because I'm still have learned to react to people that do something similar in a similar way, I need to understand that this is the sickness, just like Tina was saying. This is the other people's. This is the sickness of the situation between me and the other person or place or whatever it is. This is the situation, and it is the both of us that are sick. I needed to learn how sick I was. Because when I began this work, I didn't feel sick at all. Everybody else was sick, not me. I was the good one. I was Saint Esther Helga. And my second name, Helga, it's holy. It's Esther the Holy. And I literally felt that I'm telling you. This is me. You're learning about your teacher here. Okay, so let me see here. Yeah, and then the sentence, how can I be helpful in the situation? And it helped me to change the wording to helpful in the situation between me dragging myself into it and the other. How can I be helpful? What am I? And this is basically where the turnaround starts to happen. This is why I put this prayer up, because it's the crux of changing. We've understood in the 3 first columns, we've understood what has happened and why, according to our personality, what it's affecting. And then in the prayer, we understand how sick we are and accept it, hopefully, surrender to that, get humbled by, oh, and I remember when I was doing this work, specifically in many of the occasions that I was, when I was in this part, when I realized how sick, how I had made the mess of the relationship. And I was humbled by seeing that, how sick I was. And this is the place we need to get to before anything else happens, really. But the coming up steps and works will help us get there. So how can I be helpful? So I need to say, when we're talking about, like, for example, real abuse, like physical, sexual abusers and such, we don't have to help those people at all. This is not what it's meant. It's not, we're not supposed to, we're never minimizing what other people have done. That's not the issue. If you have been sexually abused by somebody and you're working on that, we never minimize that. Those people we need to give the shame back to those people and stop carrying their shame. That's a number one for us. And we need to learn to do that. And we don't need to have any communication. And by the way, should not have any communication with abusers. That's it. And if there's a need for anything like that, that would need to be done with professionals, not on our own, ever. And of course, people do sometimes have to face abusers in their lives, and learn to live with some of those people. So God saved me from being angry, the anger, the resentment, the justification, the righteous anger, all of that. We're asking that be taken away from us. Because as Tina said, realizing how it was not serving me, why would I want to continue to be there? And then there is this incredible sentence, thy will be done. So this little 4-letter sentence, thy will be done, I use and teach to say it's a prayer. It's a prayer, and we're asking for guidance. And every time we pray or ask for something, we need to sit and listen. We need to listen. So I have people, once they say thy will be done, sit and listen. Okay, what is the guidance coming? Am I hearing the guidance within? And it's usually what the first thing that comes up into my mind as I'm connected to my body and the awareness of myself within my body. And there's always guidance. And we'll do more work on this. I'm not going to put a lot of time on this. We'll do more on this. So with my mom, I realized how hurtful she has been to me. And I ask God to help me show us, our relationship, my mother's and mine, tolerance, pity, and patience, or compassion, or whatever wording I want to use. And I don't always say cheerfully grant a sick friend. I just take the base of the prayer here. And when I'm reminded of what she did, when it comes up in my mind, the resentment comes up, because resentment is reliving something from the past that was hurtful and is affecting me in a hurtful way. Then I can say to myself, oh, this is the sickness here. This is the old, how this old trauma is still affecting me. and I need to look at how I am reacting to it. How am I reacting? What are the emotions that come up? I get all tense and angry and or whatever, or sad or crying or dramatic or whatever it is. Maybe nothing, maybe nothing. But I need to understand and notice my reactions to what is happening. And then my next sentence is, how can I help the situation? Now, like if this is just because I remembered something that was hurtful, there's not another person there. It's just me and an old memory. And of course, that's when I need to understand, okay, what can I do to help the situation for me and the memory coming up? What's going to be, what kind of responsibility do I need to take for myself as this comes up? This old memory. And we'll talk more about that. And God save me from being angry, and thy will be done. And when I listen to what my God tells me or my inner voice, I get, accept, and be grateful. Accept and be grateful. And as I get this message within, it affects my whole body and in my whole being. It affects me and I feel it. I feel the change. It's subtle, but it's there. This is the recovery we're seeking. This is the recovery. Okay, so I'm going to try to get through this materials, all taking a long time. I'm sorry, you guys, but I think it's very important material for you to know as you go into the work. Very thorough. So the fourth step, the fourth column. The fourth column is to look, what is the exact nature of my wrongs, faults, mistakes, defects, and shortcomings? How have my behaviors, my reactions to whatever comes up for me in column 3, how is this affecting me? Where am I selfish? Where am I dishonest? Where am I self-seeking or frightened? Where am I inconsiderate? That's what's up for these. And to help you, and once again, I remember I didn't think I was selfish at all. I realized that I was dishonest, but selfish, no. Didn't think I was at all. Self-seeking? No. Didn't even know what that word meant. So I needed to, there was a lot of learning curve for me there. So that's why I got some sentences up here for you, for selfish, for dishonest, and all of these. And so that you can just read and see where and what of those might apply to your selfishness and help you understand what selfishness is in regards to the fourth step. So it can be not seeing others' point of view, problems or needs, wanting things my way, wanting special treatment, wanting others to meet my needs, wanting what others have, wanting to control, dominate, thinking I'm better, grandiosity, wanting to be the best, thinking others are jealous of me, wanting others to be like me, being miserly, possessive. It's a big one. Wanting more than my share, reacting from self-loathing and self-righteousness, too concerned about me. not trying to be a friend, wanting to look good or be liked, concerned only with my needs. So these are selfish traits that may work, some of them may apply, some not. To help you understand, as you do column 4, you may need an extra sheet to write out some of somewhat how you're selfish. Then we have the dishonesty, not seeing or admitting where I was at fault, having a superior attitude. Oh, it's kind of run. Attitude, thinking I'm better, blaming others, stubbornly holding on to inaccurate beliefs, breaking rules, blah, blah, all of this, being perfectionistic. This can all be, here we go, fixing it as I go. And then we have, see? So self-seeking is manipulating. The word manipulation, basically. It is trying to get people and to do things or, events to go my way. And it's like the actor in the big book, a little earlier in the big book, where he does everything so that people play with him, do his play. And so manipulating others to do my will. And I think addicts can be specialists in manipulation. And I can tell you from my own past is that in my codependent upbringing, I learned to be very sensitive to people. And I would be a different person with this person than with another. I was like multiple personality person for sure. And so a lot of learning in all of this. And then we have frightened. And I remember that I've said to you that being frightened is under all of it. It is a natural state of being, so we should all experience fear. But if and when we're in the crux of this working on, being in the being a addict in this disease specifically, there is an underlying fear because we know physically that we're in the wrong. And this work helps us to resolve the gut feeling, the knowing that we're in the wrong. Like if we lie, we know we lie. We know it when we do it. And we feel it, but then we eat over it so we don't feel it. Or work over it, or do social media or Netflix or whatever it is that we do to not feel or pass time. So then once the fear and the frightened brings us to the next list that we're going to be doing, but that's next week. Okay, so let's go over now. So what I am suggesting you do this week is work on your resentments, and no later than, well, hopefully tomorrow, maybe Monday, the latest, we will have the list for you to print out. And for sure. So I'm sorry it's taken a little longer than I expected. Yeah.
I already made
Okay.
available the PDF that you wanted that has the prayer in between 3 and 4, and it's interactive at the
Okay.
link I gave them.
Wow, Cynthia, you're amazing. So that's gonna be set up in the treatment practicum too, when we publish that. Is that right, Cindy? Yeah, okay.
Yes, but they can use it now.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay, wonderful. Sounds good.
They can start on the resentments now, just with that form. I'll put it in again.
Okay, great. So remember, you do column 1 first. You finalize it to the best of your ability. It's never gonna be totally fully done, because you do it as much as you can, and then you continue to do this work every day. So there's going to be additions to it as we go, as we live. That's okay. Now you're kind of cleaning your closet. You're bringing out all the old clothes that you don't need anymore and have holes in them and stuff like that. So we're kind of cleaning the old stuff that is baggage out of our closets in this. Then we do the second column, and we fill out the second column to each name. Then when we have done that all the way to the, finish all of that, we go to column 3. And I would go back to the material in the third step, the instincts, just read them over to get more clarity. And then in that, let me see, I'm going to take us back to, yeah, and how we misuse. In the pages where we are misusing, what are the pages here? Yeah, so it's from 30 slide or page 32 until the 4th step, basically. There is material on how we misuse. And as we read those, you will have your character defects. Those are similar things to the pages that I gave you about selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. You see, you will see it's basically same personality traits that come out there. Okay. Then you do the prayer. Then you do the prayer and you read from the big book, the prayer, or from the slides. Once you've done the prayer, you take a look at how you were selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. And this one is inconsiderate, and that's a good one too. But first and foremost, the other 4. Write out on another page, or however you want to put it, so it's all together, how you are selfish, how you're dishonest, and all of that. So I'm gonna stop this here right now. We have 15 minutes. So a lot of chats. I missed out on all of those chats. Am I missing something that I need to answer to?
No.
Okay, thank you. That was very direct. Okay, everybody, we're also recording this, so the recordings will be there tomorrow or Monday, the latest, for the ones that haven't been able to be here. So next Saturday we continue. So every Saturday now until the end of February, we are doing this work. And next Saturday, we will go over what we have been able to do so far. What I suggest is that you at least try to do the first 3 columns before next Saturday. Just do the best you can. It's not a test or an exam. So, and then we'll kind of go through and check where there are problems. And then we'll maybe use some examples to, and where I can help you understand better how you do the fourth column. But if you do the fourth column as well, that would be great too. So just do as much as you can. And you don't have to have completed that resentment list. But in 2 weeks, you should have completed that list. Next week, I will go over the fears, and I will give you assignments for the other week to do a fears list and start doing the fear prayer and an assignment to work on your fears that I will teach you. And then after that, the week after that, we'll do the sex inventory. And out of all of these lists, we do where have I harmed others? We do a list of where I have harmed others. And like after next week, we will start signing you up for private sessions if you want to use them with me. And in those sessions, you'll be able to bring the tough ones, where you're not sure, you need help. Usually I suggest that people come with even the trauma stuff. And I can support you in order to go through and get through, and maybe guide you to go forward with that, either with me or somebody capable of doing more deep work with you, if that is needed. So prepare yourself to let me know after next week what times might be appropriate for you to have like a session with me. We'll try to get that going. Any questions? How are you guys doing after a whole day of this? Esther, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask Esther, it was about exactly a month ago that I went through steps 4 and 5. I had my 5th step just before Christmas. And I understand that it's important to do, but somehow I feel that I am at a completely different place right now. I'm doing my amends in step 9. I just had a meeting this morning. So I'm not resistant towards it, but I just don't know, in my understanding where I am now in my recovery work, it's exactly past resentments, So I was supposed to put these things down in step 5, and I think I managed to do it to my best abilities. And I can't find the touch on how I go back to it, or I just reflect on the last month, or, because I really don't want to go back to something that I have already put down. It doesn't seem
No, you're not
logical.
supposed to. Thank you
Okay.
for saying that, Esther. No, you're not supposed to do this. So once we have completed the cycle and are doing the 9 steps, then you have learned the cycle. Then you're in the second phase, which is the 10th and the 11th step, which is to start working on it on a daily basis. So every day something will come up, and I would suggest that you just use this material for you to start practicing a daily list of what happens in the day for you. So if you've kind of gotten all of the old stuff out there, there's a beautiful clarity, and we feel so, and the 9 steps gives us, there's the promises that come after the 9 steps, and but then the work starts.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So
Okay. Thanks very much.
You're good, Esther. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Concerns? Yes, Tina?
Yeah, I'm sort of where Esther is, and that I'm just completing step 7 in the work that I'm doing. So I've done an exhaustive 4 and did 5 and 6.
Yeah.
However, as you were talking, I jotted down a few names. I don't feel a deep really much of anything, but I'm willing to actually explore a few people who came to
Mhm.
my mind as you were sharing today. So I may work a 4-step with those few people.
Okay.
But nothing may come of it. I mean, there may not be anything there. I don't know. But I don't feel compelled to do an exhaustive step 4 again, because
No,
I just,
no.
so, yeah.
So Guttorm says we only need to do that once if we do it thoroughly.
Yeah.
And then we just do the 10th and the 11th steps. That's it.
Yeah.
And then we give it on. And but it is, the emphasis needs to be that we're learning this to use it.
Right.
And so no, we don't have to go back. We go forward with whatever comes up. And so you're in the second phase of it, which
Yeah.
is just learning to do it more in everything that comes. Be more aware of
Yeah.
your behaviors and reactions in the day. Where am I sick?
Yeah.
Where does my sickness come up in the day? That's basically where we want to be, so that we can do something about it. Okay, so any more questions? We're kind of at the end of the day. Mona, we didn't hear from you yesterday. How are you doing?
Hi, Esther. Hi, everyone. I'm doing really well. I was really overwhelmed for the past couple of weeks, but I think I managed uh, to come through in a good way. Looking
Good.
forward to really a lot that is coming along this spring for us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's nice. It's going to be nice for us here in Iceland too, to get a little more of spring. Okay, so I'm actually done. If you don't have any more questions and concerns, Joni, do you have something?
Oh, I just shut my thing off. I'm sorry. Just to clarify, are we sending you the daily check-in even if we have a sponsor we're sending it to?
I would suggest that you do that, because now we're going to be going into private sessions with me. So
Okay.
we're kind of, would be doing that connection. And I can support you in the God and the self. And, if anything is coming up, use what is important in all of this is learning basically to use the check-ins. The check-ins are so important for us. And I started having people do this a long time ago in my treatment on a daily basis, and I've added on to it, and then Shift is doing it now as well.
Okay.
So it's an opportunity for you to get yourself onto the computer, on the page. What is really happening for me and with me? And all the questions about how you feel, and so many of the questions there should help you become more aware of you. And now
Okay.
be aware of where do I feel that I am in myself? Where do I feel that I am coming from my inner guided voice? That's kind of the questions. And to learn to accept our defaults.
Okay.
Learn to accept and to appreciate our assets. How about that?
Got
We
it.
need to learn to
Thank
do
you.
that. Thank you, Joni. Okay, everybody, you've been a great audience here today. I know this is heavy stuff, and I hope this is helpful for you. And it's going to come out so you'll be able to listen again to some of it, possibly if and when you go into the work. And I know this is not easy work. everybody needs to do it the way that they are able to. Use me, ask me, tell me how you're doing so I can support you. And Cynthia has put in the daily online daily. There's a link, and just link it on somewhere so that you can find it, and then you can just go in there, write in it, and it will be sent off. Oh, I don't know how I managed without Cynthia ever before. Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, everybody, and see you all next, some of you next Friday, all of you hopefully next Saturday.
It's also on the, if you're using the mobile app, the daily